There is something happening in your kitchen right now. Something invisible, something ancient, something that determines whether your family will prosper or struggle. And almost no one talks about it. Not because it isn't real, but because the people who know it have kept it quietly, passed it from mother to daughter, from rabbi to student, for thousands of years. And what I'm about to share with you today could be the single most important thing you ever learn about the space where you prepare food for the people you love. Most people think a kitchen is just a room, 4 walls, a stove, a refrigerator, a table, a functional space. But the rabbis of the Talmudic era understood something about the kitchen that modern people have completely forgotten. They understood that the place where food is prepared is not just physical. It is energetic. It is spiritual. It is, in fact, one of the most powerful portals of blessing or blockage in the entire home. And what you do, or fail to do, before you begin cooking determines which energy flows through that portal. Right now, in homes across the world, families are unknowingly preparing their meals in a space that is energetically closed. They cook with clean hands, but spiritually unprepared hearts. They pour ingredients into pots without first pouring intention into the space. And then they wonder why, despite working hard, despite doing everything right, the money never seems to flow the way it should. Why abundance always feels like it's just out of reach. This is not an accident. This is a spiritual law that most of the modern world has simply forgotten. And what I'm about to share with you is going to change the way you walk into your kitchen forever. My grandmother gave me these secrets in her home 50 years ago. Every blessing, every protection, every tradition that makes a Jewish home truly sacred. Now I've gathered them all into one book just for you. Visit the link in the description or pinned comment and let me be your grandmother too. The Torah teaches us something remarkable about food and prosperity that goes far deeper than most people ever study. In the book of Deuteronomy, the land of Israel is described as flowing with milk and honey. Not gold, not silver, not precious stones, food. The divine promise of abundance was expressed through food. This was not a coincidence. The rabbis teach that food is one of the primary channels through which the Creator distributes His blessing into the physical world. When you prepare food with awareness, with intention, with the right spiritual posture, you are not just feeding bodies. You are activating a channel of divine abundance that can transform your entire family's financial destiny. This is what the mystics call the hidden covenant of the kitchen. There was once a widow in the old city of Safed, the mystical city in northern Israel that was home to some of the greatest Kabbalistic minds who ever lived. This woman had 3 children and almost nothing to her name. She came to the great Rabbi Isaac Luria, known as the Ari HaKadosh, the Holy Lion, weeping with desperation. She told him that no matter how hard she worked, no matter how carefully she managed her small earnings, the money always disappeared. There was never enough. Her children were hungry more days than they were fed. The Ari listened quietly, and then he said to her something that she did not expect. He did not give her a business strategy. He did not recommend a charity to pray at. He asked her one question. He said, "Tell me, what do you do when you enter the kitchen before you cook?" She was confused. She said she washed her hands. She lit the fire. She began to prepare whatever small ingredients she had. The Ari shook his head slowly. He said, "And that is why the blessing cannot enter. The kitchen is a holy space. It is the altar of the home. And you have been entering it as though it were nothing more than a workroom." He then taught her 3 specific things to do before every cooking preparation. 3 things so simple that she almost dismissed them. But she was desperate, so she listened. She went home and she did what he said. Within 1 month, a distant relative she had not spoken to in years appeared at her door with unexpected money. Within 3 months, her oldest son found steady work. Within a year, her household had transformed so completely that neighbors began coming to ask what had changed. What the Ari taught her that day is what I am going to teach you now. The first thing you must understand is this: the kitchen carries memory, not just your memory, the energetic memory of every meal prepared there, every argument that happened nearby, every moment of stress or desperation or resentment that occurred in that space. Kabbalistic tradition teaches that emotions leave residue. They call it reshimu, an imprint, a trace that remains even after the moment has passed. When you cook in a space saturated with the reshimu of financial stress, of worry, of scarcity thinking, you are literally stirring that energy into your food and feeding it to your family. You are nourishing them with the vibration of lack. This is why the very first thing you must do before cooking, every single time, is clear the energy of the space. And the method the rabbis prescribed is breath and sound. Before you touch a single ingredient, before you turn on the stove, stand in the center of your kitchen and take 3 slow, deep breaths. Not rushed, not distracted. 3 breaths with your eyes closed, your feet planted on the floor, your awareness fully present in the room. On each exhale, you release, consciously, intentionally, any worry you are carrying about money, about bills, about tomorrow. You are not pretending those worries don't exist. You are choosing in this sacred moment to set them outside the kitchen door. Because the Zohar teaches that worry and blessing cannot occupy the same space at the same time. They are spiritually incompatible frequencies. My grandmother gave me these secrets in her home 50 years ago. Every blessing, every protection, every tradition that makes a Jewish home truly sacred. Now I've gathered them all into one book just for you. Visit the link in the description or pinned comment and let me be your grandmother too. After the 3 breaths, many traditions prescribe speaking aloud, even softly, even in a whisper. A short declaration of gratitude before cooking. Not a formal prayer necessarily, though prayer is always welcome. Simply saying out loud, I am grateful that I have food to prepare. I am grateful for hands that can cook. I am grateful for the mouths that will eat what I make. 3 gratitudes, that's it. But this act of spoken gratitude does something extraordinary in the spiritual architecture of the space. The Talmud teaches that the divine presence rests upon a person in a state of simcha, joy, thankfulness, not upon a person in a state of sadness or complaint. When you speak gratitude before cooking, you are literally inviting divine presence into the preparation of your food. And where divine presence enters, blessing follows. Now, I want to pause here and tell you something that most people in this modern age have completely lost sight of. There is a reason that in every traditional Jewish household, and I mean truly traditional, going back generations, the mother of the home was considered one of the most spiritually powerful figures in the community. not because of ceremonies in the synagogue, not because of public religious roles, but because of what she did in the kitchen, the lighting of the Shabbat candles, the preparation of the challah, the maintaining of the laws of kashrut. These were not just religious obligations. They were understood by those with eyes to see as profound acts of spiritual engineering. The traditional Jewish home was designed as a temple in miniature, and the kitchen was its inner sanctum. When this understanding was lost, when the kitchen became just a kitchen, something shifted in the financial energy of countless families. And many people have been living with the consequences ever since, not knowing why. But there is a way back, and it begins tonight, before your next meal. The second element of this ritual, the one that the Ari taught to the widow of Seift, and that has been practiced quietly in Kabbalistic households ever since, involves light. Specifically, the intentional use of a single small candle or oil lamp in the kitchen while cooking. Now, before you think this is merely symbolic, I want to share with you what the Zohar says about light in the home. The Zohar, which is the foundational text of Jewish mysticism, teaches that physical light and spiritual light are not separate things. They are two expressions of the same divine energy. The Hebrew word for light, or, appears in the very first verse of creation. Vayomer Elohim Yehi Or, and God said, "Let there be light." The rabbis teach that this primordial light was not the light of the sun or stars. Those were created on the fourth day. This was a spiritual light, a light of abundance and blessing that was later concealed within the physical world. And one of the places where it can be awakened is through intentional flame in the home. When you light a small candle before cooking, a white candle or a small oil lamp placed safely on a counter or shelf in the kitchen, and you do so with the intention of inviting divine light into your food preparation, something shifts in the energetic composition of the space. Think of it this way. Your kitchen is a vessel. The food you cook is what fills the vessel. But what determines the quality of what fills a vessel? The quality of the vessel itself. A dirty vessel will contaminate clean water. A spiritually closed vessel will diminish the blessing in even the most lovingly prepared food. The candle is a tool for opening the vessel, for raising the frequency of the space before you begin. Many mothers in traditional Moroccan Jewish households, a community famous for its powerful segulot, its practical spiritual remedies, kept an oil lamp burning in the kitchen every Friday, from Thursday night through the end of Shabbat. They believed, and the results across generations seemed to confirm, that a household where this practice was maintained never experienced true poverty. Not extraordinary wealth necessarily, though that came for many, but a kind of steady, reliable sufficiency that outsiders sometimes called miraculous. The Hebrew term for this is parnasa brivash, abundant sustenance, not feast, not famine, but a reliable, generous flow of provision that never ran dry. That is what you are cultivating when you introduce conscious light into your kitchen practice. And this brings me to the third element, the one that, in my experience, produces the most immediate and remarkable results in households where it is practiced consistently. This is the element that most rabbis in mainstream circles rarely discuss, not because it is forbidden, but because it requires a level of intention and commitment that many people in our distracted age find difficult to sustain. But if you are watching this, you are not most people. The third element is the spoken blessing over the raw ingredients before you begin cooking. This is not the blessing after the meal, the Birkat Hamazon that is recited when eating is complete. This is something older, something that predates the formal structure of Jewish prayer. In the earliest mystical traditions, a cook, particularly a mother or grandmother preparing food for her family, would stand before her gathered ingredients and speak over them. She would look at the vegetables, the grain, the oil, the salt, and she would address them, not in her mind, out loud. She would say something to the effect of, "You were grown from the earth that the Creator made. You carry within you His blessing. As I transform you through fire and intention, may you carry that blessing into the bodies and lives of everyone who eats what I prepare." This sounds poetic, and it is, but it is also profoundly functional, because what you are doing when you speak over raw ingredients is directing consciousness, your consciousness combined with divine consciousness through intentional prayer, into the molecular structure of what will become food. Modern physics has begun to stumble toward what the mystics knew for millennia, that matter responds to intention, that water, and food is largely water, changes its crystalline structure in response to the energy directed at it. The rabbis did not need science to confirm this. They had generations of observable results. A woman in Jerusalem whose grandmother had emigrated from Poland told me this story. Her grandmother had survived unspeakable hardship and had arrived in Israel with nothing but her children and her practices. One of those practices was this spoken blessing over ingredients before every meal. The grandmother lived to 97. She raised 7 children. Not one of them ever went hungry. Not one of them lived in poverty as adults. And the grandmother, when asked the secret of the family's resilience and prosperity, always gave the same answer. She would point to the kitchen and say, "I spoke blessing into every pot I filled." This is not folklore. This is applied spiritual technology passed down through an unbroken chain. Now, I want to share with you something even more specific, a detail that elevates this ritual to its full power, and that most people, even those who practice versions of these things, overlook entirely. It involves salt. Salt holds a unique place in Jewish law and mysticism that is unlike any other ingredient. In the temple in Jerusalem, salt was required on every sacrifice offered to God. The Torah says explicitly, "On all your offerings you shall offer salt." The rabbis teach that this was not arbitrary. Salt represents the eternal covenant, Brit Melach, the covenant of salt. Because salt does not decay, it preserves, it endures. And in Kabbalistic understanding, salt is the physical representative of the Sephira of Gevurah, divine strength, boundaries, discernment. It is a spiritual preservative, an anchor of blessing. This is why before you begin cooking, there is one additional act that the wisest of the old traditions prescribe. Take a small amount of coarse sea salt, not table salt. It must be coarse, and it should be unrefined if possible. And with your dominant hand, scatter a small pinch across your cooking surface or into your empty pot before adding anything else. As you do this, you say in your heart, or aloud, even better, "May this salt seal the blessing in this food and protect it from all diminishment." You are sealing the container. You are using the covenant ingredient, the eternal ingredient, to lock in the spiritual work you have already done with your breath, your light, and your spoken blessing. Households that incorporate salt rituals consciously, not just cooking with salt, but using salt intentionally as a boundary setter and blessing sealer. Consistently report a quality in their family meals that goes beyond nutrition. There is a warmth, a satisfaction that lingers. Guests at these tables often comment that they cannot explain why the food tastes the way it does, that something feels different about eating in this home. What they are tasting, whether they know it or not, is the difference between food prepared in spiritual awareness and food prepared in spiritual vacancy. Remember, abundance is your birthright. The Creator did not design scarcity. He designed plenty. What blocks that plenty from reaching you is not a lack of resources in the universe. It is a closed channel in your immediate environment, and one of the most powerful channels in your home, one that has been operating unconsciously, either for or against you, for your entire life, is your kitchen. Let me tell you what happens energetically in a household where this full ritual is practiced consistently for 30 days. First, the quality of family meals changes. People eat more slowly, with more enjoyment. There is less conflict at mealtimes. This is not a small thing. The table is where families connect, where bonds are forged or broken, where the emotional atmosphere of a home is established and reestablished every day. When the table becomes a place of nourishment, truly nourishing on every level, something shifts in the family's collective energy. Then, within weeks, most people who practice this consistently begin noticing something they can only describe as a softening of financial difficulty. Not necessarily a windfall, not a lottery win, but a kind of clearing of obstacles, a phone call that comes at the right time, an unexpected opportunity, a bill that is resolved more easily than expected. The channel of Parnassah, divine sustenance, that had been partially blocked begins to flow more freely. This is the Kabbalistic principle of corresponding vessels. The Zohar teaches that the upper worlds pour blessing constantly, without interruption. The flow of divine abundance never stops. What varies is our capacity to receive it, the size and cleanliness of our vessel. The kitchen rituals I have shared with you today are vessel-expanding practices. They enlarge your household's capacity to receive what was always being offered. There is a psalm, Psalm 128, that speaks directly to this. It says, "You shall eat the labor of your hands. Happy are you, and it shall be well with you." The rabbis note something curious about this verse. It does not say you shall eat the produce of the earth or the reward of your work. It says you shall eat the labor of your hands. The hands. Because in ancient understanding, the hands that cook are holy instruments. They carry the intention of the heart directly into the food. This is why the question the Ari asked the widow was not about her prayers, her charity, her synagogue attendance. He asked about her hands, about what they did before they cooked. Your hands are instruments of transformation. Every time they touch ingredients with conscious intention, they are performing an act of spiritual alchemy, turning the raw materials of the earth into channels of divine blessing for your family. This is the moment everything shifts. When you walk into your kitchen tomorrow morning or tonight before your next meal, you will walk in differently. You will understand that you are not entering a room. You are entering a sanctuary. You are about to perform an act of creation. You have been given by the Creator Himself the power to transform matter into blessing. And the 3 breaths you take, the small candle you light, the spoken gratitude over your ingredients, the pinch of coarse salt you scatter with intention. These are the keys that unlock a channel of abundance that was designed for you and your family long before you were born. The rabbis say that the word bayit, home, contains within it the concept of building. A home is not found, it is built, not with bricks, but with daily acts of consciousness. And nowhere in the home is this more true than in the kitchen, where the daily work of feeding a family becomes, when done with awareness, one of the most profound spiritual practices available to any person regardless of their level of Torah scholarship or religious observance. You do not need to be learned. You do not need to be perfectly observant. You need only to be present, to walk into that space tomorrow with the understanding of what it truly is, to breathe, to light a flame, to speak gratitude, to bless what you cook, to seal it with salt. Do this for 1 week, just 1 week, and pay attention, not to dramatic signs or sudden windfalls, though those do come in their own time. Pay attention to the small shifts, the way your family seems different at dinner, the quality of sleep after a meal prepared with intention, the tiny, almost imperceptible loosening of financial tightness that begins when you restore the kitchen to its rightful place as the spiritual heart of your home. Remember, abundance is your birthright, not because you have earned it or deserve it through merit alone, but because it was built into the design of creation. The flow was always meant for you. You are simply learning today how to remove what was blocking it. If this teaching has opened something in you, share it with someone you love, a mother, a sister, a daughter, a friend who has been struggling. These teachings were not meant to be hoarded. They were meant to travel from heart to heart, from kitchen to kitchen, from generation to generation, precisely because the families who carry them prosper, and the world becomes better when more families prosper. Subscribe to this channel so that you never miss what comes next. Each teaching builds on the last, and what we are building together, week by week, is a complete understanding of the spiritual architecture of abundance that the ancient world knew and the modern world desperately needs to remember. May every meal you prepare from this day forward carry the fullness of divine blessing. May your kitchen become what it was always meant to be, an altar of abundance, a channel of sustenance, a place where the sacred and the nourishing meet in every pot, every flame, every grain of salt. May the hands that cook in your home be filled with light. May the table where your family eats be a place of joy, of healing, and of generational prosperity that flows from you to your children and from your children to their children without end. Abundance is your birthright. Walk into your kitchen like you know it. Amen.